So I don't talk about it much on my channel, but I'm actually quite the gamer. I beat every single level of No Islands, and I've played a lot of Mario Kart in my day. I've seen the movie Tetris like 5 times because I love video games, but there is no video game on earth that I love more than Donkey Kong Country Returns. When I was a kid, my neighbor had the game and we would spend entire summers in her basement playing it. I loved it so much I made my dad take me to Blockbuster so I could rent it for myself. And that's how old I am. I eventually bought the game and started playing it with my siblings, and that was over 10 years ago, so this game means a lot to me. And when I found out they were re-releasing Country Returns for the Switch, I was over the moon. I was so excited. So to commemorate the occasion, in this video I will be ranking all 9 worlds from the game. Here's the premise if you're unfamiliar with the game. Donkey Kong Country Returns is a platform game where you play as Donkey Kong or Diddy Kong or both. Your bananas have been stolen by a tribe of tiki creatures that have also hypnotized all the other animals on the island. So you have to travel through 9 different worlds on the island and get the bananas back. It's a lot of fun. Also, sorry if my voice sounds weird or bad. I am sick. I'm very sick. I have pneumonia. Usually I have a couple rules and exceptions to go through first, but not this time. So let's get started with the ranking.
Okay. Go to hell.
I feel like I have to rank the Golden Temple last, not because I dislike it, but because it's only 1 level and all the other worlds have at least 7. But I really do love the Golden Temple because it feels like a reward for all your hard work. It can only be unlocked once you collect every single Kong letter in every single level of the game, which then unlocks a bonus key temple level in each world that you must pass and collect a colored orb from, which then unlocks the Golden Temple. I actually didn't know this world even existed until a few years ago. As a kid, my friends and siblings and I were so genuinely terrible at the game that we never made it past the beach, which is only the 2nd world in the game. We were like, why is there so much extra space on this island? What's all that purple stuff over there? Although to be fair, despite my obvious gaming skills and knowledge, this game is not easy. There was an entire summer that my siblings and I dedicated to finishing the entire game, which we hadn't done before, and it took us a month and a half to finish the game in its entirety. This level is a lot of fun, but it's still pretty challenging. I love the fruit theme and the music, and once you complete the level, you unlock mirror mode, which I have not used even 1 time. Unlike most things I make a video about, I am not at all tapped into the Donkey Kong fandom. I have no idea how people feel about this game, so I'm really curious to see what people think of this ranking, especially people who know more about Donkey Kong than I do. I've only played this game and Tropical Freeze, which I did not like. All of that is to say, I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion, but I do not care for the ruins. This world was always my sister's favorite, but I never really liked it. It just feels like the jungle, but with more buildings. The only real standout level is Itty Bitty Biters, but that's just because the actual biters are so cute. I also want to mention Temple Topple, the first level in this video to feature Rambi. Rambi does not appear nearly as often as I would like. I think he's just the most precious and helpful little friend. Other than that, all of these levels are just forgettable to me, except Mass Blast, which is literally just a beach level that isn't part of the beach for some reason. There's also Button Bash, which I only remember because it's the only level to feature these hummingbirds, which are such a pain to deal with. The boss level is fine, but it's one of 2 bird-related final bosses, and it's definitely the worst one. According to the Donkey Kong wiki, his name is Stu. Perhaps his last name is Pot. It's not my favorite boss level, and it's not my favorite world, really. I will say the Ruins probably has my favorite of the key temple levels, that being Shifty Smashers. I like the slower pace of it, and the gold looks cool. The best level in the Ruins is Itty Bitty Biters, and the worst level is Mass Blast.
And what does Daddy Longlegs eat? Boys, boys, boys.
If Ruins is just the jungle but with more buildings, the forest is just the jungle but worse. I don't hate it, but when I'm replaying this game, I will hardly ever choose this world. I do absolutely love the music, which kind of sounds like... I'll bring this up a few more times later on in the video, but the original soundtrack for this game is so iconic, the entirety of it is burned into my brain. I know a lot of this music is originally from previous games, but this is how I know it. I also want to point out how the game as a whole transitions between worlds. Most of the time, the first level of a new world will showcase Donkey and Diddy leaving the previous world. It's done really well in the forest especially. The atmosphere of the forest is nice, but it always felt a little off to me. I like all the mushrooms and vines, but when I hear the word forest, I'm thinking of squirrels and bears, not hippopotamuses. Bopopotamuses. I shouldn't call something a hippo if it isn't. I'm a Moomin fan, I should know better. My main issue with these lower ranked worlds is that the levels tend to blur together for me. A lot of the forest levels are very similar, except for Muncher Marathon. In this level, you have to literally run for your life from an avalanche of spiders, and the sound they make is disgusting. This is quite possibly the most stressful level of the entire game. If the wall of spiders catches up to you, you're done. There are no checkpoints and you have barely any time to stop and collect anything. And if you're trying to collect all 4 Kong letters to unlock the Golden Temple, ugh. And by the way, the spiders get woken up from you bouncing on their eggs. Ugh. It sounds like I hate this level, and I kinda do, but it's very exciting and it's one of the most memorable levels in the whole game, and it's also what saves this world from being ranked even lower. I kind of thought the spiders were foreshadowing for the world's boss. I thought I would have to fight a big spider or something, but instead the forest boss is this electric plant caterpillar that has pretty much nothing to do with anything and is probably my least favorite boss in the game. The best level in the forest is Muncher Marathon, and the worst level is probably also Muncher Marathon.
Situation, discombobulation.
The cliff gets a lot of points from me just because it has dinosaurs in it. It actually has skeletal dinosaurs, which is even cooler. It also has dinosaur jaw bones and spines that are big enough to walk on, which is the coolest. Unfortunately, it feels like none of the individual levels in the cliff are as interesting as they could be. Once you get used to the premise, the charm kind of wears off. Also, not to keep comparing the game's OST to other songs, but listen to these 2 pieces of music and tell me you don't hear a similarity. The only level I really feel like mentioning is Precarious Plateau, which features my beloved Rambi, but as much as I love him, and I'm not at all trying to shame him, but his weight makes it hard to navigate the crumbling platforms. Technically, he is optional. You don't need him to pass the level, but like, if you give me Rambi, what am I gonna do, not ride Rambi? I don't really dislike any of these levels, but the one I like the least is probably the boss level, Thuggly's High Rise, which is kind of a sequel to the jungle's boss level, Mugly's Mound. I think they're brothers. It does make a lot of sense for the boss to be a dinosaur-like creature, but it does feel a little too much like a rehash of Mugly's Mound, especially because none of the other worlds have parallel bosses, and the cliff isn't at all aesthetically or thematically similar to the jungle. But it's really not that big of a deal. Overall, the cliff is just okay. The best level in the cliff is Precarious Plateau, and the worst level is Thuggly's High Rise.
He flew my ass out on a PJ straight to Dolly World. Next thing you know, we're riding wooden roller coasters.
I probably should have mentioned this before, but within the game, there are 3 subcategories of levels that are different from usual. These are barrel levels, where you shoot through barrels for the whole level, rocket levels, where you ride on a rocket barrel for the whole level, and cart levels, where you ride on a little cart for the whole level. The cave is almost exclusively cart levels, which makes a lot of sense. There's an underground mining town populated by moles and a bunch of sharp jewels you have to avoid. It's a cool premise. There's one level, Bombs Away, where you end up on a circular piece of broken track and you're rolling through all these jewels and breaking them, and you have to jump at exactly the right time and it looks crazy. But other than that, I just don't love cart levels all that much. They've never been my favorite. There is a rocket level, Crowded Cavern, with these horrible, ugly bats. I'm realizing I'm judging these creatures based on whether I find them cute or ugly, which I suppose is quite shallow of me. I don't like the rocket levels, and I usually love rockets, man. I just think the rocket levels are needlessly difficult with the Wii controls, so maybe I'll like them better on the Switch. The music is great though, and this is probably the last time in this video I'll compare the OST to another song, but the music that plays during the rocket levels sounds like I'm Still Standing. No, not that one. not that one either. Yes. There's at least one level in each world I enjoy going back and replaying, but once I finish the boss level, which is actually pretty fun, I don't really have any reason to go back to the cave. Oh, I was so hoping I could work that in. The best level in the cave is Bombs Away, and the worst level is Crowded Cavern.
He has no grace. This cause is a fucking disgrace.
I have never been more ashamed and embarrassed by my gaming ability than when playing through the volcano. It's the final world in the game, and it definitely feels like it. Everything is way more dramatic and serious and difficult. The volcano is extremely difficult. There was one level towards the end, moving melters, that my siblings and I were stuck on for a solid week. The end of that level is insane, and playing it with my siblings, it made me understand sports. It made me understand why people yell at the TV when they watch the Super Bowl. We were all taking turns with the remote, palms sweaty, knees weak, arms heavy, huddled around the TV watching each other like... The final boss of the volcano and of the entire game is a giant tiki demon. The level is really difficult, but I feel like it's just not as interesting as it could have been. The other bosses would always evolve or change in some way. They would change color or even location, so for the final boss, this feels a little weak in comparison. The volcano mostly ranks so high on excitement and aesthetics. It's the only world in which it's always nighttime and all the lava and fire looks really cool. Smoky Peak is probably the best looking level in the whole game. It is gorgeous. The characters and pathway are all in silhouette and the backdrop looks so cool it almost distracts you from the actual gameplay. Also, Rambi is here. Rambi's only weakness is fire, so it's kind of fucked up that he's even here. Why would you do this to him? Smoky Peak is relatively easy but also challenging enough to be exciting, and it might be my favorite level in the entire game. The Key Temple level, 5 Monkey Trial, is also pretty cool. It's split up into 5 different sections and it brings back enemies from previous worlds. It's really neat. The volcano really feels like a finale. There's one last cart level, one last rocket level, they bring back a bunch of obstacles and antagonists from previous worlds. It does a great job of bringing everything full circle. The best level in the volcano is Smoky Peak, and the worst level is Moving Melters, which I do like, but it is extremely difficult without any extra items. A very important part of the game that I have yet to mention is Cranky Kong's shop. Each world has an identical shop run by Cranky Kong, who I love. He's always going, and in his shop are various items you can buy to help you out. So before we get to the top 3, I'd like to take a moment to do a mini ranking of all the items in Cranky Kong's shop. Number 7, Squawks. Let me tell you another story from my childhood. Remember that summer I spent playing this game with my siblings? So we were making pretty good progress until we got stuck on a level. I can't remember which one now. I think it might have been Muncher Marathon. Up until that point, we had been insistent on doing things the right way. We didn't use Super Guide, which is like a Silver Fox version of Donkey Kong that can pass the level for you if you're having trouble, and we didn't use any of the items from Cranky's shop. But we'd been stuck for days and we were getting really frustrated, so we all agreed that we would save up our coins and use them to buy a bottle of banana juice, which makes you invincible for 10 extra hits. It costs 20 coins, which is exactly the amount we had saved. It took us a long time to get those coins, which is kind of embarrassing, but it's true. And my brother and I trusted my sister with the Wii remote to go and buy the juice. So you can probably imagine how furious we were when she went rogue and spent 15 of our 20 coins on Squawks. All Squawks does is sit in the corner of the screen and let you know when you're close to a bonus room or a puzzle piece. But I don't care about puzzle pieces. I want the Kong letters because I want to unlock the Golden Temple. But now, it'll take me so much longer because I don't have banana juice because you spent all of our money on a bird. Fuck Squawks. I hate Squawks. Numbers 6 through 4, balloons. They're just extra balloons, which are basically just extra lives. They're nice to have, but I wouldn't spend my banana coins on them. I can just collect 100 bananas and earn balloons that way, which is easier than it sounds. Like, just find a bonus room and you're set. Number 3, Heart Boost. It's kind of the same deal as an extra balloon, but instead of giving you an extra life, it gives you an extra heart within the level. Number 2, Map Key. This one is actually really important because it unlocks an entire level within each world that you don't have access to otherwise. Oftentimes, the locked up levels are some of the best in the entire game, like Smoky Peak. The key is really the most vital item in the shop because you cannot complete the game without it. And number 1, Banana Juice. This was probably pretty obvious because of my whole bird rant earlier, but I love banana juice. First of all, it looks delicious. Second of all, I love the way it makes Donkey and Diddy look. Third of all, it is so useful. Like I said, it makes you invincible for 10 extra hits, which really goes a long way. It doesn't work super well for rocket or cart levels, because if you run into something with the rocket or fall off the track in the cart, you die instantly. But if you're doing a level like, I don't know, Muncher Marathon, the banana juice makes it so much easier. It really helps for the more difficult levels in the later worlds, as well as the key temple levels that are very challenging and don't have checkpoints. I love banana juice. I would like to drink it. Thus concludes my ranking of every item in Cranky Kong's shop.
The thing about Donkey Kong is he's a fucking ape.
He's a big monkey.
It was at this point in the ranking that I really started thinking about the fact that Donkey Kong is a gorilla. And fun fact, gorillas apparently can't swim. Actually, I know for a fact Russell can, and so can Noodle because she was a pearl diver once, but for the most part, gorillas cannot swim. So it makes sense that Donkey and Diddy don't swim in this game, even though they can in others. In Country Returns, they can't even touch the water or they'll die instantly. I just think it's interesting they can't swim in this game, especially when playing through the beach. Usually when fictional gorillas end up on a beach, that's a very good thing. You'll probably get a really good album out of it, and a really concerning radio show. This game has neither of those things, but the beach is a ton of fun. Like I said earlier, it's only the second world in the game, so it is pretty easy, but these levels are some of my favorites. The only one I really dislike is Cannon Cluster, where there are bombs constantly being thrown at you, but pretty much every other level is good. There's Peaceful Pier, the game's first rocket level, Stormy Shore, where there's a giant octopus following you around, and Tidal Terror, where you have to run for cover from these huge waves that instantly kill you.
He's dead.
The beach looks great, the levels are really creative in my opinion, and it's one of my favorite worlds to play. The best level in the beach is Stormy Shore, and the worst level is Cannon Cluster.
I'm making bits and parts, although sometimes I feel a bit like the bits and parts are making me.
Okay, so a lot of these environments make some kind of logical sense. The ruins imply some kind of previous civilization. I don't want to unpack that. But forest, cave, volcano, those are all nature things. I'm cool with that. Why is there a factory? What is being manufactured here? Who is employed at this factory? Are they being treated fairly? Do they even have dental?
They don't even have dental.
I'm willing to look past all of this because the factory is so awesome. There are so many new wacky gizmos and gadgets, and also the grass is chains now. It's so different from anything else in the game, from the platforms to the obstacles to the music to the way the whole world is structured. The first level, Foggy Fumes, is another silhouette level. Everything is covered in fog and more of the background eventually gets revealed throughout, which is such a genius way to introduce a new world. There's also Switcheroo, where you use switches on the walls to jump between these red and blue platforms. I don't know what's inside them, looks like goo. And then there's Music Madness, where everything is timed to the music and at the end it zooms out really far and you can jump really high. There's also a rocket level, Gear Getaway, but like who cares? 3 of the game's levels contain a hidden pathway to a giant red button. It's like an extra little mission within the level. When you find and turn on all 3 buttons, which you have to do to progress through the game, you generate enough energy to power this big ass rocket, and then you get to ride the smaller regular rocket inside. This level, Liftoff Launch, is totally different from any other level except for the first half of the final boss, which comes later in the volcano. The rocket goes vertically, there are no collectible items like Kong letters or puzzle pieces, and there's actually no real conclusion either, it's very short. It's just a way of getting you to the final boss, who, by the way, is literally Captain Chicken. His name is Colonel Pluck, but it might as well be Captain Chicken, are you kidding me?
Captain Chicken, thanks a lot.
He's a chicken in a robot suit who just like stomps around in the robot suit. It's so sick. This boss level is insanely hard, but it's worth it for Captain Chicken. I love the factory. It's so unique and so much fun, and it has my favorite boss of all time, Captain Chicken. The best level in the factory is Switcheroo, and the worst level is Gear Getaway.
So without further ado,
Let's go!
This is probably a really basic top choice, but the jungle has always been my favorite. It may not be all that challenging or interesting or special, but it's still my favorite by far. I have to admit it's probably because I have so much nostalgia associated with this world specifically, but it's also, in my opinion, the best collection of levels in the game. There isn't a single bad or even mediocre level. They're all iconic and I remember them all front to back. There's Jungle Hijinks, the very first level, King of Cling, one of my absolute favorites where you cling onto the grass to escape from piranha plants, Treetop Bop, which is Rambi's first appearance, Canopy Cannons, a really fun barrel level, Crazy Cart, the game's first cart level, which I actually really like, and Sunset Shore, the second best looking level in the game. I would call it my all-time favorite level because I do think it's pretty much flawless, but Smoky Peak still takes the top spot because Rambi is there. Even Mugly is the perfect boss. He's super fun to fight, I love the way he changes color, and he's way easier to defeat than his brother Thugly. When I was a kid, I convinced my siblings there was a third brother named Fugly. The jungle might not be the most interesting or unique location, but when I think of the game, I think of this. I don't know how else to explain it, it's just classic, I really love it. Every level in the jungle is great, there are no skips, the aesthetic is great, the music is the best, it's a fitting introduction to everything, and it's the best world in the game. The best level in the jungle is Sunset Shore, and the worst level... there is no worst level, I love them all. So that was my ranking of every world in Donkey Kong Country Returns. Let me know if you agree or disagree with my picks, especially if you're a Donkey Kong fan and or expert. I would love to hear from you. Donkey Kong Country Returns is my favorite game ever. I love it so dearly, and I know this video is more geared towards people who are familiar with this game, but if you aren't, I would recommend it if you have a Switch. I haven't actually played the Switch version yet, but it's gotta be better than Tropical Freeze. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you liked me, be sure to subscribe to my channel. If you want, you can even turn notifications on so you'll be the first to know the next time I'm running from a giant wall of spiders. Anyways, it's gonna be all from me. I've gotta go see what this new re-release is all about. Bye!